Everyone struggles with procrastination. And a big part of that is recognizing that it is a coping mechanism for avoiding things that are unpleasant, difficult, and traumatic. So today we're going to talk about why do we procrastinate so that we can start to short circuit some of these very bad habits, but also end the cycle of self-blame. This is CourseHack for Higher Ed. All right, a big welcome to Dr. Brian Dewsbury, Associate Professor of Biological Sciences at the University of Rhode Island, and Assistant Dean Michelle Fonts, Dean of Diversity, Recruitment, and Retention in the College of the Environment and Life Sciences. Thank you so much for being here. And I'm Janelle Corrett. We are here today to talk about procrastination. And I've been dreading this topic for a while.
We've been procrastinating this conversation.
We have, but it's time. It is time to discuss it. And I think this is something everyone struggles with. So I'm really curious to hear about how you both tackle this and then also what advice you give to students. I don't think that this is an individual problem per se. I think so many people have this issue. So for me, I like to reframe it not necessarily as what I was told growing up, which was that it was like a moral failure. I know, issues. But actually, I think it's about wanting to avoid, it's a coping mechanism to avoid things that are difficult or uncomfortable or traumatic. And there are a lot of traumatic things in education sometimes. So for me, just breaking that cycle of like, oh, it's all my fault, I procrastinated, and just realizing, oh, actually, I'm trying to take care of myself by avoiding this thing. So now I need to figure out what it is that was difficult about that and kind of flip it and do it in a way that is no longer, something I want to completely avoid. So what do you guys think about this?
I don't know, B, you want to go first? Or
no, I always defer to you. You know the rules. But the only thing I will go first to say, Michelle, is happy birthday. I just want to make sure audience knows that.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
I'm just going to leave it. That's a tweet. I'm going to leave it right there. That's the whole tweet.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much.
Really, thank you for being here on your birthday.
Oh, please.
I bet this is your day off, right?
This is my pleasure, though. This is the stuff that I do and I love. So it is interesting because a lot of what I'm seeing now, especially, is people not wanting to do things that they know they need to do, but because of the climate now, as well as avoiding the things you don't want to do, it's happening over and over again. So I'm trying to practice what I preach, by the way, because I think we all have issues, maybe except for my type A friend that's on the call. But for the most part, most people that I know are really struggling.
That's not me, by the way. She wasn't talking about me.
Are really struggling with trying to get in a headspace with everything else that's going on to really focus on the things that they need to get done. So just yesterday, I was on the phone with a young man that's really struggling with really just not wanting to do it just because. And so the strategy I've been using with people, as well as for myself, is to break it up in chunks. Because when you don't want to do something, to sit there and do it 3 or 4 hours at a time, that's just going to be a killer, right? So we create a strategy. And again, I am an accountability partner for a lot of the students I'm working with, because if you're left on your own accord sometime, that makes it 10 times worse. So I'm meeting with him again next Monday. And what we talked about is him stretching out. It is for an exam in accounting. Not a fan of accounting at all, but knows he needs to do it, right? And I said, I want you to think about your schedule. When is your high point? Meaning, when do you feel most energetic? Is it when you wake up in the morning and you have your coffee? Is it in the afternoon? I don't know when it is for you, but schedule some time so that just in that time, even if you're like, you go, you sit, you do, and walk away from it. Because I know for me, doing an assignment or a report that I don't want to do, or exercising, I struggle with that. If I don't set it up and say, shut up, go do it for a little bit of time, then come back, you're going to feel better and you'll know, all right, if I just chunk it out. So that's been a real good strategy for the students that I've been working with, but the accountability is a big piece of it too. Hold yourself
awesome.
Yeah, if you do it by yourself, you're less likely to schedule it. But if you know you're going to be talking to somebody that you are considering your accountability person, you want to have done something. So that's one strategy that I'm using.
I like that a lot, the accountability piece, because a lot of times I won't necessarily do it for myself, but if I know I'm doing it for somebody else, it's like there's that pressure, and then there's also a little bit of, connecting to wanting to help someone, even though you're actually helping yourself, but helping them feels good.
Yep.
You're making me think of favors I want to ask you now. If you had to do it for me, would you get that favor?
That's my tip, actually, for avoiding procrastination is doing a round robin. So the idea is the thing that I dread the most, and I have a couple of people that I do this with, we will switch them, and I'll do the thing that they dread, and they do the thing that I dread, and we're both getting it done because it just doesn't have the same hold on you. If it's somebody else's awful, boring task, you still just want to do it for them. So that's how I get around the absolute worst of the worst things.
Yeah, I'll separate my response into I think there are two reasons why procrastination happens. Perhaps there are more, but I'll just give you two. And I think they're separate, and we perhaps may have to recognize them as separate. And then after that, I'll maybe offer a different philosophy to think about it. I think there's a kind of procrastination that comes with just having a lot to do, right? So yeah, you talk about me being type A. I just finished a draft of a paper yesterday that was on my desk for 6 years, right? But I'm obsessive, right? It's a long time, but I'm obsessive. It's gonna happen, right? And there's a whole bunch of reasons for it. Data didn't come in on time, blah blah blah. But it was always the least pressing thing of the 19 things I had to do as a professor. So I wasn't so much avoiding it. It just never floated to the top in terms of its importance, right? And so to address that, that's a kind of a conversation about what's important. How do you kind of prioritize things, and how do you deal with things that you might perceive as low priority, but still deal with them anyway? That, I think, is a logistical solution. The second bucket, though, I think is a bit more is deeper. I remember I was talking to a colleague from a different university who's now a provost, and she was telling me that when she was an assistant professor, she found that she avoided things like grant writing or writing papers or analyzing her data and doing a lot of service work because when she reflected on it, she realizes she was avoiding those things because it made her come face to face with the kind of high stakes activity that you had to do to get promoted. And that was a scary proposition for her, right? So instead of kind of facing up to it and just getting it done, you did other things that made you feel busy, right? But they weren't actually going towards the professional goals you had set up for yourself at the beginning. And in the literature, they speak to something called task value, right? What is the value that this task has to you? So you might find yourself procrastinating less if the thing that you have to do really means a lot, right? If you really saw it as part of your core identity, if you saw how clearly it fit to your visions of your future self and things like that, and if it doesn't, then that becomes a separate question to just putting it off, right? And I think if you're separated too much, you miss the underlying driver of why people might procrastinate. So I would say in response to that, a friend of mine came up with a phrase when we were in high school, actually, because surprise there, we used to do the same thing. He said there's a difference between time spent and spent time, right? Spent time is, so I'll just give you the example. I'll try to be quick here. We had to study in high school, and we used to stay back in school to study, right? And there was a library in school. And what would happen is we'd get very distracted. We'd go to the library, we'd talk to each other, then we'd go take a break, then we'd maybe play a small game of football, then go back and study for like another 20 minutes. And then before you knew it, 3.5 hours passed and the sun was setting. And we would tell ourselves as we walked out the school, man, we spent 3.5 hours after school, boy, we must be working hard. When actually we spent about 10 minutes doing real work, right? So you have to, we realize this coming down to the end, you have to develop a mentality of every minute if you say this is what you're going to doing for this time period, you have to hold yourself accountable back to your original point, Nell, of what is actually happening in that hour, right? You have to have a mechanism where you look back and say, if I was studying biology, math, or whatever from 3 to 4, what came out of that? Did I understand a topic better? Did I solve more problems better because of that? Did I get a deeper understanding? Or did I just sit there and read the same thing over and over, right? So I know these things are harking back a little bit to the study strategies episode, but it's actually connected, right? Because if you have a meaningful time spent, then you have less incentive or less reasons to want or need to procrastinate.
Mm-hmm.
So I'll pause on that because I think I think these things are not separate at all.
This is why I love doing these, because I feel like I'm watching a masterclass really, and like how you are both managing these. These are really complex issues. And the accountability, I think, definitely works. So Michelle, that's like a home run idea. And not every student has met with you or has you as their accountability person. And there are some people in your life that are good for this, and then there are some people in your life that are not good for this. So finding a really good ally, someone that can support you in accountability, is helpful. And I think that's kind of to your point too, Brian, as that.
Yeah, and it can be a peer, right? It doesn't have to be me or a certain person. You can, have a class with a friend, and you all just say, you know what, let's hold each other accountable. Let's get online and let's study and let's talk about it. And then next week we can do it again. You can always find someone. But the other thing I wanted to tell you is, with that same young man that I was talking about, I said to him, and Brian, I always think of you when I have these conversations. I really do. I said, what are you doing accounting for? Why are you in the program? And so we get down to the real goal. What is the real? I want my MBA, and I want to be able to go work for, okay, beautiful. So now let's backtrack. You're in accounting. Why? And why do you need those skills?
Mm-hmm.
So that I can move on and get through this program to get to my goal.
See episode 1, right?
Yeah.
Right.
Yes. But you have to remind yourself, because there are tasks that you have to build up to your goal that you're not going to want to do.
Right.
So can I just
great point.
throw a monkey wrench in here? Because even if for some of us that struggle with procrastination, even if you know what your big goal is and you know why, sometimes you still resist doing that thing. And one thing that's helped me a lot is building in actual rewards that I like.
Mm-hmm.
So sometimes, and I don't know if this is the case for you both, but sometimes for me, just getting the task done is not reward enough. Like, it's done. And then unfortunately in my mind, I just then go straight to the next thing on my list. And it'll just keep going until I'm burnt out. So I'll just keep going down my to-do list. And since to-do lists never end, it just never ends.
I got an answer for you.
So I have to stop myself and celebrate my wins and say, I'm going to do, like, maybe I'll have a cup of tea, whatever it is that works for you as this is my reward. It doesn't have to be a huge reward, but it also doesn't have to be a huge victory either. Like little victories, little small victories, especially when you're feeling like overwhelmed and paralyzed, can be really powerful. And it starts to change. For me, it's really started to change my mentality. Like, I'll just write down what did I accomplish that day and feel good about it, and actually be like, you know what, I did really good today. That's good.
That's part of the strategy for my accountability too, right? So we talk about what you're going to do, but I always build in, all right, so once you've done that, get your task done, then you can feel good about doing Netflix, about going out with your friends. Because if you hold yourself accountable to do really good things for you, whether it's professionally or personally, that you know are goals of yours, do some of that. Then it's not going to feel really bad when you sit down and you play video games later on tonight because you know your friends are coming home from work. You're going to feel okay about that because you did the work. You're not going to feel okay about it either in that moment or later on when you're behind. So yes, that's part of the reward system, right? Oh, after 8, I don't want to do anything. So let me get it done. So then I can talk to Michelle next week and tell her how I did this. And I can also enjoy my evening with my friends and not feel like, damn, I didn't do it. So I think that's perfect.
And I want to just make it clear to our listeners that all these things are connected, right? In that the reward feels good if internally the task has value, right? So if the task doesn't have value, like giving yourself a bowl of ice cream doesn't feel equivalent to what you just did. So there's some connectivity here where, Michelle's point where she raised a while ago, almost in passing, is that, look, you may have a long-term, really exciting goal about how you want to impact the world, but the steps you have to take to that, not all those steps are going to be enjoyable. So, for Brian Dewsbury, my reward system, as lame as this sounds, is looking at my calendar and knowing that everything I wrote for that particular day got done. That makes me feel good when I see that. And conversely, if I didn't get things done, I actually don't feel good, right? If I miss my alarm and don't run in the morning, I don't feel good. But that's me. So you have to actually find what your motivation system is, and but also find why it is, whether it is a task, immediate task, or what that task is leading towards is bringing value to your life. And I just want to, Nell, I know we don't have much time left, so I just wanted to, just give the significance of today. So today's November 3rd. We record these podcasts, and we so by the time you see this, it'll probably be a couple of days later. But we understand that today is a significant day in American political life, as every 4 years it is. So Nell wanted to know if each of us, Michelle, had just a couple comments to make on our civic responsibility and the role of students in being part of that.
And I'll just also say to that, I think that holding space for your reaction to the election is not procrastination, right? That's just setting
Right.
yourself up for success. So don't over plan, over schedule, over task yourself this week. Create the space to be able to react, respond, process. And that's not procrastination. That's building in the buffer that you need.
Right.
Yeah, people are going to have to deal with how they feel, right? Everyone's going to have their own perspective of everything. But I think that you said it just as well as I would have known. It's about reflection and saying, I can't really control what happens in this election, but what I can control is myself, right? And no matter what the outcome is, I have to control what I can do afterwards to really benefit myself and move forward in a way that's productive and valuable, no matter. Because we don't know what they may know by the time they watch this, but whatever the result, it does not change who you are as a person, what you can achieve, and how you move forward. There'll be some things that come out of it. We don't know what it's going to look like, but I challenge people to make sure that they're thoughtful about keeping themselves safe in a setting that's really, because I just don't know what the reaction is going to be either way. So being safe, connect to yourself, reflect on things, and just be good to yourself during this time.
Yeah, I just want to add, or maybe remind our listeners that, one of the reasons why we do this weekly podcast is because we never signed up for this, the jobs that we have, simply to just transmit information to you. We have bigger views of what education is and what it can be. Education is about civic responsibility, is about critical consciousness of the world, is about helping you cultivate power that you have, agency that you have. And for you, when you become lawyers and mayors and leaders in this society, that you bring that awareness of yourself and of others, that you have that understanding of the humanity of people, especially people who perhaps didn't grow up in the way that you grew up. And as a biology professor, everything I've said just now is more important to me than the biology itself. I love biology, but education is defined by that power shaping construct, right? So whatever your voice, whatever direction your voice goes today, please remember that the point of this pathway is to help you exercise that voice in a way that's responsible, in a way that helps people. So I wish you good luck. And I hope all of you have voted if you can. And like Michelle said, whichever way it goes, the commitment to that journey of equity internationally, we will not waver from that no matter what. So I really, really thank you for sticking with us and now on future episodes.
Yes.